Okay, so the first part of the event graph is done, where we are setting up the material relationship. Now we are going to, I assume we're going to drive the power level of our character, but I understand you've got like a code event of some sort that you have set up for us to use. Is that correct?
Right, there's a power up, which is the blueprint implementable event. Basically, I just got it ready to fire in code, and you get to set up all the behavior.
Okay, so when I type power and I see event power up, that's what I need, right?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So we'll go ahead and create that. Now, that doesn't have any need for parent function or anything, right?
Right, since there's no code implementation.
Okay, yeah, this is more or less like a hook that I use. Cool. Okay, so then what we need to do essentially is find some way to increase the power level of the character, which is in turn going to drive the material because we've already told it to do that. The way I would drive something over time is generally with a timeline, because that gives you control over how the change takes place. You can use an animation curve. So let's go ahead and build a timeline first. I'll right click, and of course right there is visible as add timeline. Let's name this. We'll call this the power up timeline. And we'll go ahead and open it up. Now, the first thing we're going to do in here is, of course, add a curve, which I will call the, well, if I...
Foiled by autosave.
Yeah, if I can maintain focus in more ways than one, we'll call this the power up curve. Or you could call it like power up output, or call it, Super Bowl. You can call it anything. So now, normally we would often just create a curve in here. I'm actually going to drive you away from doing that, because this is kind of a critical system. This is the character of your game, and you don't want to make it easy to come in here and break stuff. Also, you're a couple of stages removed. Like if you have to edit this curve, then you've got to find the blueprint, open the blueprint, find the timeline, open the timeline. So what we're going to do instead is, well, not that. We're going to jump back out to our main interface and go to the content browser, and I'm going to create a curve asset. So let's go to new, and I'll make a new folder. Now, generally, and I don't want to make it in the blueprints area. So actually, let me right click and delete that, because I just want to put it at the root of game. And yeah, delete the folder, thank you. So we'll go up to game, and then we'll make a new folder, which will be much better. And I'm going to call this data. So I make data folders as kind of catch-alls for things like enumerations, for curve assets. And I imagine in the back of my head that programmers hate it when I do that.
It's just reusable information. I mean, it makes sense to me.
I'll take it. So I just right-clicked, in case you missed that. So right-click and go down to miscellaneous and click on curve, and that'll create a curve asset. We want this to be a float curve, so choose curve float, click select, and we will call this the power up curve. Yes, that's the same name we used in the timeline. That's good. So we'll open this up. It's not something you have to do, it just makes me happy. So here's the curve editor. To create a curve, I'm just going to shift click 2 times to create 2 keyframes. We'll take the first keyframe and select it by clicking on it. We'll go up to time and set that to 0, take value and also set that to 0, and that was super fast and easy. We'll take the second keyframe and click on it, and we'll set the time to about what, a second, 2 seconds, second and a half, what?
Second and a half.
1.5 will be our time, and our value will be 1. So let's go ahead and click zoom to fit horizontal and vertical. So it's just a linear relationship, which is no fun. Let's hold down Control and click on both keyframes to make sure they're both selected. I'll right click on one of them and choose Cubic Auto to get a nice S curve. So some ease in, ease out behavior, because I think that'll look nicer. So with that, we can hit save. We can close up the power curve because we don't need it anymore. We can actually jump into our timeline. Here, we just need to put this curve into this location. So over here in the content browser, make sure you have power up curve selected. Here in your timeline, just click on your little arrow to drive that in, and boom, there you go. There's your curve. So the good news is that if you need to change the duration, if you need to change any of the behavior of that curve, you can just do this right in here without ever having to touch the blueprint, which is ideal.
There's still some settings, though, in the timeline you need to use, though, right?
There's one in particular. I need to use last keyframe so that it doesn't continue on for 5 seconds. And I was totally just waiting to see if you would catch me on that, because that was totally a test. Good news is you passed the test. It wasn't that I forgot. All right, so now, what is this timeline going to do? Because it's just outputting a float value, and it's a 0 to 1 value. What we're going to do is use the timeline to drive a linear interpolation between whatever our character's power level was when he picked up the battery and whatever it's going to be once the battery adds its power to that value. So let's go ahead and store that data first, and then we'll set up the linear interpolate. So we need 2 variables. So create the first one, and we will call this pre-charge power level, like so. And it looks like that's already been created. That may or may not be because I already tried to create this once in an earlier version of the video. So what I'm going to do is just mess with your minds real quick and delete 2 variables that you didn't see. Just pretend that those weren't there for me for just a minute. And we'll click on Add Variable. And here's the all new, you've never seen before, pre-charge power level. So to be perfectly transparent, due to a technical failure, I tried to record this video earlier and I broke something. So having fixed that piece of equipment, I'm now re-recording it, and so that's why you saw that variable there. But we're not going to stress that, right? So we'll set the variable type over to float, and that's good. Let's go ahead and create our second one, which we will call charge2 power level. Or you know what? I'm actually going to call this something. We're going to call this resulting power level. I like that name better. Okay, so now let's store some data in these. So we're going to take pre-charge power level, and we're going to alt drag a copy of it out because we're going to be setting it. And what are we going to set that to? Well, that's easy. What are we going to set it to, Lauren?
Our power level. And did you know that you can drag the variable right out of the My Blueprint tab, and you can just automatically connect it to the pin that way?
I did know that. I just haven't done that. But no, it's a good time for me to do this. Let me look at, where's it? Hiding under power, right? So we just drag it right into the pin, and boom, there we go. So now the other thing is we need to set the resulting power level. So let's alt drag a copy of that out as well. And this is going to be the result of our power level combined with whatever battery power came in from the power up, because I think that's how that works, right?
Right. So the battery power you have there, you know, if you pick up 1 battery, you have 10 power, and if you pick up 5 batteries, you have 50 power. So it's basically all the total power you have available to you after you're done collecting batteries.
And that's why Lauren's here, to remind me all this coding work that you guys have already done when I wasn't around. So we're going to take the power level, we'll add it to the battery power, and we'll take the result of that and store it into resulting power level. Let's make sure we string all these up so that they all work like they're supposed to. And I'm going to tidy things up just a little bit so that I can condense the graph and fit more onto the screen. So something about like so, and then we can just play from start. So this is all working. Now we just need to set up our linear interpolation so we can get that data that we've now recorded. So let's just control drag pre-charge, control drag resulting, and we're going to do a lerp in between these two. So I'll drag a wire out, type lerp, and like so, and we're going to drive that from the power up curve. So that's also super easy. And I think our last thing is really just to feed this back into our power level. It makes sense to me anyway.
Yeah, on Tick, you're always updating your power level or updating your material and your speed from your power level. That's
right. So there we go. So I just alt dragged out the power level, set that on update, not on finished, and let the result of our linear interpolation. So I guess at an overview, what we're doing is we've just picked up a battery. Let's store our power level. We'll also store our power level plus the however much power is going to be added by the battery. And we'll put that in a separate variable. And then over a certain animation curve provided by a timeline, we will linear interpolate from where we were to where we want to be and store that back into the power level. And then, of course, with the system that we created earlier, that's going to then drive our material. So I think we're done.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and make sure we compile. We'll save. Can we test this yet?
So you can, but you'll have to add the battery pickup we made back in the previous video to the level so you can test it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So let's see. Do we have access to that right now?
Yeah, you do. The all classes drop down there in the placement mode, or I guess the all classes sort of subsection.
Right.
If you just get the battery pickup right there, actually.
Oh, is it right there in front of me already?
But I mean, search is good too. What if you named it something later in the alphabet?
So we can add that in, and of course we can't really see it because I don't think it has a visual component yet.
Yeah.
Is this still going to work?
Yeah, it should still work.
Okay, well let's just try it then. Let's play from my camera location and hit play. And ooh, he's glowing like crazy, and he's starting to fade already. We can see him fading. I'm gonna let him fade for a minute. Okay, so we see all that working. That's good. And let's see him start to get darker. I want to watch that glow really start to go away.
Well, no, he wouldn't get darker yet because we didn't set up the decay.
Oh, right. There's no decay. Okay.
So
and
he's just sort of.
what he's doing right now is oscillating. Okay, so we won't worry about that. We won't worry about the testing aspect yet. We have some more pieces to get in. It'll be a little easier to test. So that's actually going to wrap things up for this video. Thanks a lot.